Hey, this is Chosen One right here, live now. It's my birthday. I figured I'd make a video. I've seen Gemini's video, old school versus new school. Seen WWGA6's review to that, and I want to say this much about those two guys right now. They are, without a shadow of a doubt, probably the greatest old school fans ever. And I know Gemini probably gets mad when I call the Hulks to the Suckster. That's my opinion. I watched wrestling in the 80s. I went through the Hulkster era. Not everybody likes Hulk Hogan. Yes, you have to respect him for what he has done. And what WWGA6 said, show respect for the old school guys. And he's right. Now they have that hook where they can hook you in with the pyro and the microphone stuff. Back then it didn't. It was pure. It was good. I'm not saying today's is not good either. I mean, it is. You know, the stage they play on is good. But back then that was for real. No presentation. This was it. This is it. This is what you're gonna get, and it was bomb. And I dogged the Hulk Hogan Andre the Giant match at WrestleMania 3, and I'm not gonna take it back. I thought sorry, but like WWGA6 said, it was the biggest event in wrestling history, and it is. It's what made wrestling. That main event is what stacked 93,000 people into a dome and watched that pay-per-view or watched that WrestleMania. And like WWGA6 said, Bruiser Brody was the first into hardcore, you know, before hardcore was even cool. And Bruiser Brody was at one point the highest paid wrestler in the world. And Bruiser Brody, now I'm a big Bruiser Brody mark. I love Bruiser Brody. I watched all his matches. I love Bruiser Brody. WWGA6 is smart. He's on, and he knows what he's talking about when it comes to that. WrestleMania 3 made it. But what I also want to clear up in this video response to Gemini 6 is people say it wouldn't be wrestling for Hulk Hogan. I don't know about that. You know, some other guy would have been in that spot. It just happened to be Hulk Hogan came along at the right time, and Vince knew what to do with him, and it did make it. Yes, you know, but you got to also remember Hulk Hogan, not by himself, made that whole thing. Who came up with the character? Who came up with the gimmick? And who wrote the scripts? You know, you got to think about it. It was not just Hulk Hogan himself. Hulk Hogan performed it, but it's not him. If you put Hulk Hogan in a ring against nobody, it wouldn't have been as big as it is. But if you know, and you said it went in the slumps there for a while, and then WCW got Hogan, whatever. Yeah, and Stone Cold adapted and made the Attitude Era, and it made wrestling even bigger, to the point where, yeah, Nitro was beating Raw for 84 weeks in a row, but you know, you look back and you see that Raw was beating. I mean, Nitro was beating Raw 84 weeks in a row, and then Stone Cold got that step up, and that's when it started turning. So you gotta look at it that way. That Hulk Hogan, he did revolutionize wrestling. Whether you like the Suckster or not, he made the business. You gotta show him respect for the stuff that he's done. Yes, you do. But that don't mean I gotta like him. I respect everybody from the 80s, because the 80s was a phenomenal time to watch wrestling. And if you haven't never watched the 80s and wrestling in the 80s, you need to. I remember getting Coliseum videos all the time, watching them, or going to the video store and renting them just to see them. I remember the first Royal Rumble, and I'm not talking about the 1989 Royal Rumble, I'm talking the 1988 Royal Rumble on the USA Network when Hacksaw Jim Duggan won it. So yeah, Bobo Brazil, he opened up the gates for the African American wrestlers, and really gave that. And now that's innovative. You know, that back in the time period he broke free and made it. He was a very popular superstar. And I mean, it's it. And if you haven't got this DVD, and I got it, you know, let me pull it out here. If you have not got this DVD, if you've never seen the 80s, you need to go back You need to watch it. You need to watch this DVD. Wrestling Stars of the 80s. It don't show everything that you need to know, but I can tell you, these guys that's on the front cover are the guys that made wrestling. They are the guys that stepped it up here in America. But and I think I made a video about this a while back talking about it. Wrestling in the 80s was more about wrestling than wrestling today. Wrestling today is more about entertainment value, lack of athleticism. They don't care. That's where I'm getting at. You got Shelton Benjamin. He's not great on the mic, but his wrestling skills speak louder than his words. Kurt Angle was good on the mic, and he was good in the ring. You find a good combination like that, and I'm not saying that. Let me see if I put this in a good way. The Hulkster or the Subster was not in any category in American wrestling. I'm not talking about Japan. I'm talking about American wrestling. Was not the best. He was nowhere even close to the best. Entertainment wise, say your vitamins, eat your vitamins and say your prayers. Eat your vitamins and say your prayers. Got him going, you know. But you also look at this, and who did Hogan adapt his characters from? Was Superstar Billy Graham, who at the root at that time, and then the imitation of Superstar Billy Graham went on to be several different people, like Jesse the Body Ventura and Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan, if you've never watched the Spectacular Legacy of the AWA, you need to go back and watch it. Hogan was there at one time. And Andre the Giant was the original Giant. There is nobody that can even compare to Andre the Giant. I was a big fan of Andre the Giant. And he wrestled all over. He would be in WWE one night and France the next night fight somebody. You know, he really was larger than life. And that feud between him and Hogan in the Pontiac Silverdome in Detroit, Michigan, made wrestling. It made it bigger than what it was. I mean, when you pack 93,000 people in a stadium, you can't even pack that many now. With the wrestling that they got today, you don't hear that. That is record-breaking. It was probably the biggest crowd that anybody ever wrestled in front of. And it had Ricky the Dragon Steamboat and Macho Man Randy Savage. One of the greatest Intercontinental Championship matches of all time on there. Yes, I've watched wrestling in the 80s. I loved wrestling in the 80s, but I was not a big fan of Hogan. I liked Rick Rude. I thought Rick Rude was awesome. You know, I thought he was a little underrated when he wrestled back then. You know? And, I mean, like WWGE 86 said, there would be no Shawn Michaels. There would be no Undertaker and stuff like that, on and on, if it hadn't have been for these guys from the 80s. Yes, you have to show your respect for the old school wrestlers because they're the ones that made it. You look back and you say it's boring. I don't think it's boring. I love watching it. You know? I mean, and a lot of people do. They'll look back and say it was boring, but unless you were born in that era, you really don't know what it was like. I mean, wrestling was probably more popular then, or I know it was more popular then than it is right now. But there was two big booms in wrestling, really. The 80s and the late 90s. And then after that, it went right back down where it was at. You know, the coast. There may be another big time, you know. But right now, wrestling in the 80s was the best of wrestling. And, you know, you watch AWA now, you really did have to have a cup of coffee to stay up for one of their matches. But some of them, because, I mean, they drug them along. But you enjoyed it. And it was more appreciative back then, too. But wrestling now, there's so many damn shows, and the pay-per-view here, Gemini's right, the pay-per-view is killing it. I mean, 12 pay-per-views was enough at one point, and then like he said, there's like 14, 15 pay-per-views now. I can remember when there was 5 pay-per-views a year, and it was better that way, I thought, because you had time to build up rivalry. Real rivalries, like you said. A year. It took them a year to build up the Mega Powers rivalry. Yeah. Now they move it so fast paced that you can't even keep up with what rivalry is going on right now. But it's still, I mean, you know, you have to move with the times. Even Hulk Hogan said this. He says the feuds last a lot, they're a lot shorter now. Because back when Bundy and Hogan and Savage and stuff, it took a year. They build it up for a year. Now it's 3 weeks, 2 weeks. They build a rivalry in 2 weeks. Really, it just crunches, and pay-per-view is killing the WWE. It really is 12. This is the chosen one, and that's my opinion.